There are moments that do not need to be entered. They arrive on their own, not by invitation, not by effort, but by quiet availability. Nothing announces them. They do not interrupt. They simply begin when attention stops insisting on direction. At first, there is still a trace of movement, a subtle leaning forward, a habit of checking what comes next. This habit does not disappear immediately. It lingers out of familiarity rather than necessity, but gradually it softens. The moment does not resist this softening. It does not encourage it either. It remains neutral. This neutrality is important. It means nothing needs to be adjusted. Nothing needs to be interpreted. The moment is not improved by attention and not diminished by its absence. Awareness begins to settle without instruction, not because it is guided, but because there is nowhere else it needs to go. The usual sense of timing loosens, not completely, but enough to stop counting. Seconds pass unnoticed, not because they are empty, but because they are not being measured. This is not a special state. It does not feel elevated. It does not separate itself from the ordinary. It feels simple. Thoughts still appear, as they always do, but they arrive without urgency. They do not line up. They do not compete. They pass through gently, like sounds that do not demand a response. There is no need to follow them, no need to push them away. They are allowed to be incomplete. In this allowance, something quiet takes shape, not a realization, not an insight, just a sense of ease that was not created. The body notices this before the mind does. There is a subtle release, not dramatic, just enough to be felt. Nothing is being held tightly. Breathing continues on its own rhythm. No effort is required to guide it. No instruction improves it. It happens by itself. This self-sufficiency of the moment creates a quiet trust, not trust in something specific, but trust that nothing needs intervention. Intervention belongs elsewhere. Here, the moment does not ask to be managed. Awareness remains present without needing a task. There is no scanning of experience, no evaluation of quality, no question of whether this is working. Those questions lose relevance. The moment does not answer them because it does not recognize them. It exists without reference. This lack of reference removes pressure. Without comparison, there is nothing to live up to. The mind relaxes its grip on expectation, not by decision, but by quiet redundancy. Expectation simply has nothing to do. There is a gentle sense of arrival, not arrival at a destination, but arrival into what is already here. This arrival does not feel like crossing a threshold. There is no before and after, only continuity. The moment does not distinguish itself from others. It does not claim importance, and yet it holds attention effortlessly, not by pulling, but by not pushing away. There is no desire to name what is happening. Names would make it smaller. They would turn it into something to remember. This moment does not want to be remembered. It does not want to be repeated. It does not ask for return. It is content to be unnoticed. Time continues to move, but its movement feels distant, not irrelevant, just unobtrusive. The present does not feel suspended between past and future. It feels whole on its own. This wholeness is quiet. It does not announce itself as completeness. It simply does not feel lacking. Nothing here asks to be added, nothing asks to be removed. The simplicity of this can feel surprising, not because it is impressive, but because it is rarely permitted. Life often moves quickly toward meaning, toward purpose, toward improvement. Here, none of that applies. There is no need to make sense of this moment. Sense making would introduce distance. The moment remains close by staying undefined. Awareness does not need to focus sharply. It spreads gently, allowing everything to exist without emphasis. Nothing is highlighted. Nothing is ignored. This equality of experience creates a sense of balance, not balance as control, but balance as absence of strain. The mind rests in this absence, not asleep, not active, just present. There is no sense of waiting. Waiting implies something else is coming. Nothing else is required. The moment does not move toward anything. It does not prepare. It does not resolve. It remains open-ended without feeling unfinished. This open-endedness feels natural, not unsettling, not incomplete, just open. Awareness remains steady. It does not tighten. It does not drift. It stays because staying requires no effort. For now, the moment has arrived, and nothing needs to be done with it. After the moment has arrived, there is often a subtle impulse to move within it, not to leave but to adjust, to find the right position. This impulse is familiar. It comes from habit rather than necessity. The mind is used to fine-tuning experience, shifting slightly, improving comfort, seeking a better angle. Here, that impulse appears and then fades. There is no better place to stand, no position that improves the moment. Movement, when it happens, does not lead anywhere. It does not change what is present. It simply passes through. Awareness begins to sense this. That motion does not create progress here. That stillness is not something to maintain. Both are equal. This realization is not intellectual. It is felt quietly, like discovering that leaning forward does not bring you closer. The moment holds regardless. Tension begins to move less deliberately, not fixed but fluid, not resting on one thing, not searching for another. It drifts gently without losing contact. This drifting is not distraction. It is openness. Thoughts appear and disappear without forming a path. They do not suggest action. They do not require response. They are present and then they are not. There is no sense of interruption when they arise, and no sense of relief when they fade. They are simply part of the movement. The body participates in this movement quietly. Small shifts happen on their own, not adjustments, just natural changes. Nothing needs to be corrected. Breathing continues, sometimes noticed, sometimes not. It does not require attention to function. When attention rests on it briefly, nothing changes. When attention moves away, nothing is lost. This reinforces something subtle. Attention does not control the moment. The moment is self-sustaining. Time passes in a gentle rhythm, not counted, not ignored, simply moving. There is no urge to mark it, no internal clock keeping score. Minutes do not accumulate. They dissolve as they pass. The mind notices how different this feels from usual movement through time. Not faster, not slower, just unmeasured. There is no sense of anticipation. Nothing is being waited for. And because of that, nothing feels delayed. This absence of anticipation creates a surprising ease. The moment does not lean forward. It does not pull backward. It remains balanced. Awareness moves within this balance without needing direction. Sometimes it rests on a sensation, sometimes on a thought, sometimes on nothing in particular. None of these feel more correct than the others. There is no hierarchy of attention here. This equality allows movement to happen without effort. Nothing is emphasized. Nothing is suppressed. The mind, accustomed to choosing focus, relaxes its grip. There is no wrong place for attention to be. This can feel unfamiliar. Choice usually implies control. Control usually implies responsibility. Here, responsibility fades. Attention is free to move because nothing depends on where it lands. This freedom does not feel expansive, it feels light. Movement becomes less noticeable because it has no consequence. There is no outcome attached to it. The moment remains unchanged whether attention moves or not. This realization removes urgency. Movement no longer feels necessary. Stillness, too, loses its importance. Neither is privileged. They coexist naturally. There is a sense of flow, but not a flow towards something. A flow within what is already present, like water moving without a destination. The mind does not try to understand this flow. Understanding would interrupt it, so it does nothing. And in doing nothing, movement remains gentle. There is no internal commentary about what is happening. Descriptions feel unnecessary. The experience does not need to be framed. It stands without explanation. As this continues, the sense of effort softens further. Nothing needs to be sustained. Even attention feels optional. The moment does not depend on being noticed. This is quietly reassuring. It means nothing can be lost by relaxing further. There is no edge to fall off. Movement slows not by force but by lack of purpose. And then it may pick up again, equally without purpose. Both feel acceptable. There is no preference. The mind rests in this neutrality, not disengaged, not focused, simply present. This presence is flexible. It bends without breaking. It accommodates movement without needing to stabilize. The moment feels resilient. There is no fear of disruption. Nothing here is fragile. Even distraction does not disturb it. Distraction simply becomes part of the movement. This dissolves a familiar tension, the need to stay attentive. Here, attention does not need to stay anywhere. It moves as it moves, and the moment remains intact. This removes the idea of doing something right. There is no correct way to be present. Presence happens on its own. The mind, freed from managing this, settles into ease. At some point, without effort, the sense of being at the center begins to soften, not disappear, just loosen. There is less feeling of standing somewhere and observing from there. Less sense of position. Awareness no longer feels anchored. It is present, but not located. This shift is quiet. It does not announce itself. There is no clear moment when it happens. It is noticed only afterward by the absence of something familiar. The usual sense of here and there becomes less distinct. Experience is no longer arranged around a point. This does not feel disorienting. It feels natural, as if something unnecessary has been set down. Attention no longer checks itself. There is no subtle monitoring, no internal reference asking how things are going. That reference has softened. Without it, experience becomes less personal, not distant, just unclaimed. Thoughts still arise, but they no longer feel addressed to anyone. They do not arrive as messages. They do not expect acknowledgement. They pass through the same open space as everything else. Attention does not follow them. It does not resist them. It simply allows them to move on. There is more room around everything, not expansion, but absence of compression. Nothing is being held tightly. The sense of time becomes less structured. Moments do not line up. They do not form a sequence that needs tracking. Time continues, but it is no longer organizing experience. The present does not sit between past and future. It stands on its own. This standing does not feel stable or unstable. Those qualities no longer apply. There is no longer a need to locate oneself within experience. Without location, nothing needs to be oriented. The body continues its quiet rhythms. They do not draw attention to themselves. They simply happen. When they are noticed briefly. When they are not, nothing changes. Awareness does not cling to sensation. It does not avoid it either. There is a gentle neutrality. The mind, accustomed to being central, relaxes further. It does not try to understand this shift. Understanding would reintroduce a center, so nothing is done. Experience continues without commentary, without framing. There is no impulse to define what this is. Definitions would make it smaller. This openness does not feel vast. It feels ordinary, like something that was always present but rarely noticed. The absence of a center removes pressure. There is no position to maintain, no perspective to protect. Nothing depends on how things are perceived. This creates a quiet freedom, not freedom to do something, but freedom from needing to. There is no internal movement toward meaning. Meaning is not denied. It is simply irrelevant here. Experience does not ask to be interpreted. The mind rests in this lack of demand, not because it chooses to, but because there is nothing else to do. This rest does not feel heavy. It feels light, almost transparent. Awareness becomes less noticeable. Not gone, just unobtrusive. Like a window that is no longer seen once the view is clear. There is no desire to stay here, and no desire to leave. Those ideas no longer apply. The moment does not feel fragile. It does not require attention to sustain it. Even when thoughts briefly cluster, the openness remains. This suggests something quietly important. Presence does not depend on focus. It does not require maintenance. This realization does not form into insight. It does not solidify. It simply settles into the background. There is no sense of completion and no sense of incompletion. Those distinctions have faded. The experience does not point anywhere. It does not suggest continuation or conclusion. It simply remains. The idea of self reappears occasionally, not as a center, but as a passing reference. It does not reclaim its former position. Experience does not reorganize itself around it. This makes identity feel lighter, less defining, less binding. There is no effort to sustain this, no concern about losing it. It does not feel like something that can be lost because nothing was gained. The mind no longer searches for footing. It does not look for stability. Stability has become unnecessary. There is no sense of depth to explore, no layers to uncover. Experience is simple by not asking to be more. The openness remains neutral, not inviting, not resistant, just present. Awareness rests without needing a place to rest from. Nothing in this moment claims importance. Nothing competes. Everything is allowed without needing to be acknowledged. This allowance feels complete without needing to be recognized as such. There is no urge to remember this, no sense that it should be carried forward. It belongs nowhere in particular. For now, experience continues without a center to return to, and nothing is missing. Without any clear signal, things begin to feel ordinary again. Not because something ends, but because nothing needs to stand apart. Awareness does not move away from openness. It simply stops noticing it as something separate. What was spacious does not close. It blends. The moment does not change character. It just stops being distinct. Thoughts appear more freely now, not abruptly, not intrusively, just naturally. They do not interrupt anything. They take their place alongside everything else. There is no impulse to return to how things were before, and no sense that something has shifted. Nothing needs to be marked. The mind does not pause to reflect. Reflection would create distance, so it does nothing. This doing nothing allows continuity, not continuation of a state, but continuation of life as it is. The sense of self becomes clearer again, not heavier, not more important, just present. It does not reclaim the sender. It simply joins what is already happening. There is no contrast between presence and activity. They are no longer separate. Attention moves more freely now. It shifts as it always does, but without urgency. Movement does not feel like departure. It feels like flow. The openness that was present does not need to be preserved. Preservation would imply value. This moment does not ask to be valued. It was never something to hold. There is no pressure to remember how this felt. Memory is optional. Forgetting would not undo anything. Whatever was available remains available without needing recall. This is subtle, almost easy to miss. Nothing insists on being noticed. The ordinary returns quietly. Sounds, thoughts, small decisions. They arrive without friction. There is no sense of interruption, only continuation. The space that held everything does not disappear. It becomes unremarkable, like air that is only noticed when it moves. Life resumes without adjustment. Nothing needs to be integrated. Nothing needs to be applied. The moment does not leave instructions behind. There is no takeaway, and that absence feels appropriate. The mind does not try to extract meaning. Meaning would turn this into an experience. This was never meant to be an experience. It was simply time passing without insistence. Attention no longer rests in any particular way. It does not need to. It returns to its natural variability, sometimes focused, sometimes diffuse. Both feel fine. There is no sense of loss. Nothing was owned. There is no sense of completion. Nothing was started. The idea of beginning and ending no longer feels relevant. The moment folds back into the ordinary without ceremony. There is no gratitude to express, no acknowledgement required. Nothing was given, nothing was taken. The mind does not feel changed, and yet nothing feels pressured. This lack of pressure is quiet, not noticeable unless looked for, and there is no reason to look. Life does not slow down. It does not speed up. It simply continues. The openness that once felt central now feels peripheral, and that is fine. It does not need to stay in view. There is no effort to return here later, no plan to recreate this. Recreation would miss the point. This moment was never something separate. It was simply a period in which nothing needed to happen. That period does not announce its end. It does not need to. It blends seamlessly into what comes next. The sense of listening softens, not stopping, just becoming less defined. Listening turns into being. There is nothing left to attend to here, and nothing left unattended. The simplicity of this is easy to overlook. Nothing claims significance, and because of that, nothing feels incomplete. There is no need to move on, and no need to stay. Movement happens naturally. The moment does not resist it. Everything continues without carrying anything forward. No insight, no calm, no clarity, just continuity. For now, this is enough.